Good morning, friends. Today we start a new chapter 16, Management of Natural Resources. So we'll see what are natural resources and why we need to manage our natural resources. Now we can see the natural resources we have is soil, air, water, and various components cycled over and over again by nature. So you know in Australia there was a forest fire very recently, a huge fire which destroyed most of the forest in Australia, but again the forests have started to grow now. So soil, air, water is in a constant cycle which grows over and over again. Along with that, at every place we have forest, and the forest has got wildlife. Then we have coal and petroleum. Now these resources are used for development. Okay, all the resources the countries use for their own development. But we have to see the development is a sustainable development. Now we have to understand the word sustainable here. What is sustainable development? When we start to use the resources at a very fast rate, then it brings a drastic change in the environment and leads to catastrophe. You also know previous year in Uttarakhand there was a flood. Now Uttarakhand is a mountainous region covered with forests. Okay? Now to develop the cities and to develop industry, we are cutting down the forest. Because the forests are being cut down, the rivers are drying up. When the rivers dry up, people start acclaiming the land on the river and start to build the buildings over there. Now, in case in future, when there is a heavy rain or a cloud burst, then the rivers start to flow again. And when the rivers start to flow, anything which comes inside its path, on its path, is destroyed. So that is the same thing which happened in Uttarakhand. The rivers dried up, so people started building on the riverbed. When the heavy rains came, the rivers started flowing again, and everything in its path was destroyed. In many mountainous places now, there are landslides. Why are there landslides? Because the trees which are holding the soil together are being cut down. So when the rain comes, heavy rain comes, the mud starts to flow and there are landslides. So every country wants to develop because in the race of development, every country wants to use its resources. But we have to understand that resources are very limited. It takes time for the renewal of these resources. So we have to use the resources very judiciously. So this whole lesson is about our resources and how to use it judiciously. So we will see here. Look at the first sentence. What does it say? Like I explained, development causes environmental problems. So there is some natural forest body. Now the population is growing. Cities are becoming bigger. So the forests are being cut down or the wasteland is being used to make buildings. The cities are growing bigger and bigger. We need more water for more people. We need more food. So we are cutting down forest and starting agriculture. But when we destroy one part of the environment, it leads to global level problems. So we are very helpless in this regard. So what happens is all the countries who know the Greenpeace and everything that the earth has got limited resources. The earth cannot give home to infinite number of people. So there are certain international laws and regulations. And we also have our own national laws for the environmental protection. The government has to make sure that the environment is protected. We can now use all the resources we have and do very high development. But what about the future generations? What are we going to leave for the future generations? So that the future generation has resources to work upon, there are laws and regulations made by international bodies as well as the country. And now there are national and international organizations working towards protecting our environment. So Greenpeace is one such body which looks that the seas are not polluted, the forests are not polluted. Every country will need laws and regulations to see that the natural resources are judicially used and it does not cause damage to the environment. So industries have to develop, trade has to develop, but not at the cost of the environment. So there are organizational bodies which try to bring a balance between development and environmental protection. So here is a brief about the Kyoto Protocol. So Kyoto Protocol is the international norms for the emission of carbon dioxide. So all the vehicles that we use, all the machines we use, which use petrol or diesel or coal, will give out carbon dioxide. So this protocol, the gathering, you can read the details later on, but it is to control the amount of carbon dioxide released by certain machines. So what is the main, we'll just see the main thing here, to hold the temperature 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial times. Make financials full of every nation consistent with achieving the above goal. Reduce emission to a level where they would not affect the environment. The carbon dioxide level emission by the machines, by the vehicles have to be checked. Okay. Now Canada has pulled out in 2005, citing that CO2 emissions are nearly 17% higher than in 1990. So instead of decreasing, the CO2 emission is increasing. There is an international body which is keeping a watch on the carbon emissions, but the body is not effective at all. The CO2 is increasing every year. We are going towards global warming, and the global warming will increase the sea level, and many cities that are on the seashores will be submerged into the sea. So this is a very precarious situation that we need to see. Now in India, for the pollution, there was a Ganga Action Plan. The Ganga Action Plan is a multi-crore project which came in about 1985. Why? Because the quality of water in the Ganga has become very poor. Now this river Ganga has been flowing for a millennia, more than a millennia from the beginning, and Ganga has got some very good properties. Many scientists have studied this water. It is effective in killing many types of bacteria. Yes, so Ganga water, and secondly, the Ganga water also remains fresh for a very long time. So in ancient times, during long voyages, people used to fill the Ganga water in the ships to carry because it remained fresh for a very long time. So Ganga is such a river, it is different from other rivers in India. It has got this self-purification where the river can purify itself. But it can purify itself only when the contamination level is low. Now we have polluted Ganga so much that it cannot purify itself. All the religious practices are taking place on the river, dead bodies for the moksha are put into the river. So Ganga is becoming very polluted, so this multi-crore project was started to clean the river Ganga, but it has been unsuccessful so far. The recent government has also have a project, but things are not very successful. So people have to be educated, and the Ganga river has got very good properties which kill certain forms of bacteria. One bacteria is mentioned here is coliform. It is a bacteria which is found in human intestine, and it is a disease causing microorganism. So this Ganga river has been having religious value in India. And Ganga is worshipped because it has got the property of self-purification. The water of Ganga has been scientifically tested. It is different from other rivers. It can, like I told you, kill many different types of bacteria. But the pollution level has become so high that the Ganga cannot self-purify itself. So the government has to intervene to make the Ganga clean again. Now, the pollution of the Ganga. So the river Ganga is a course of 2500 km which starts from a glacier called Gangotri in the Himalayas. So it flows from Gangotri in the Himalayas to Ganga Sagar in the Bay of Bengal, covering a distance of 2500 km. But now this river is turned into a drain, a gutter, by more than 100 towns and cities in Uttar Pradesh. All the cities on the bank of the river in Uttar Pradesh, in Bihar and in West Bengal pour their garbage and excreta into it. So without any processing, all these cities on the bank of this river are putting their garbage inside it. And this untreated sewage, which is dumped into the Ganges every day, is polluting it totally. Then other human activities like bathing, washing of clothes, immersion of ashes and the dead bodies are also put in the river. Now this is due to religious belief to give them moksha, but there has to be certain steps taken and certain places only where this should be allowed. This is happening in the course of the whole river and it is being polluted. Also, industries started on the bank of the river, they are putting the chemical effluents directly into the Ganga river and the toxicity kills the fish in the large sections of the river. So the river, like I told you, has been flowing for thousands of years, but people have always worshipped Ganga, the river, and tried to keep it pure. They have done their worship over there and prayers over there, but recently people have started dumping their gutter, their waste into the river, dead bodies, ashes, clothes and all bathing take place. Even the industries are pushing their chemicals into the river, which has made it very, very toxic. So now, that was the river Ganga. Now the pollution is increasing day by day. So what we need to do? The only policy to reduce pollution is reduce, recycle, reuse. These are called the 3 R's. Remember, they are the 3 R's. Reduce. What is the meaning of reduce? Use less. Reduce the use. So, what will you do? Reduce the use of electricity by switching off unnecessarily lights and fans. Why you need to switch off the electricity? Because to produce electricity we are burning coal in thermal power plants which causes pollution. The more electricity that you save, the less coal is burned. So save, reduce the use of electricity, save water by repairing leaky taps. Also do not waste food. So wherever you can, try to reduce this use. Try to reduce the use of plastic bottles, okay, in which you buy various food items like jam or pickle. So use the bottle again and again. Instead of throwing away the envelopes, the bottles, try to use it again and again. You have also seen now, because of the hygiene, we talk about hygiene. Previously, all the soda bottles, thumbs up and all used to be glass bottles. Today, all the bottles are made up of plastic, which is a one-time use. We drink thumbs up or Pepsi or whatever bottle, we drink with one, the soda, and we throw away the bottle. So we have to find our alternative now. So first alternate is to reduce, means use less. Use less electricity, switch off the lights and fans when not needed, repair all the taps in the house, do not waste food. Second is to recycle. Recycle means we use it again and again. Collect plastic, paper, glass, metal items and use this again and again. So you can use the plastic bottles to say grow some plants. You can use glass bottles for decoration. So instead of synthesizing or getting fresh plastic, paper, glass or metal, try to use the ones you already have. So what do we need to do because of that? We need to segregate our waste. Now what is the meaning of segregate our waste? So recycle, we have to segregate the waste. What is the segregate the waste? Put it separately. Do not put all the waste together. Put the plastic separately, put the paper separately, put the glass separate, put the metal separate. There are temple bells coming to your place to collect the waste. So waste is segregated and then it is recycled. Recycled means the plastic is melted and made into new plastic. The same way goes with the paper. The paper is recycled to make recycled paper. The glass is melted to make new glass, and even the metals are melted and new metal is formed from the same metal. That is to recycle. And better than recycle is reuse. What is the difference between recycle and reuse is, see, first we have got reduce to make less use. But in recycle, what do? We melt the goods and make them again. But melting these goods will take energy. This will need energy. We have to heat it, melt it and recycle it. But in reuse, we have to just use it again and again. Okay? You simply use the things again. For example, a soda bottle which you have, you can use it to fill water and carry it any place you want like a water bottle. So reuse is better than recycling because recycling uses energy. So this is the 3 R's we should remember: reduce, recycle, reuse. To save the environment, to save energy, to make the resources more usable, what we need to do first is reduce. So use as much less as possible. If you have to bring something from the shop and the shop is near to your house, then use a cycle or walk instead of using your bikes, okay, which uses petrol. So this is the meaning of reduce, use less. If you have got some work to do, then try to finish the work in one round itself, saving your fuel. In the second we have got recycle. Instead of dumping the waste everywhere, we segregate, we separate the plastic, the paper, the glass, the metal, and the big industries or the big recycling materials, they melt it and recycle it again. And the third best one is to reuse. For example, old newspapers are used for covering books and so on. Our parents have been doing it, but reuse is the best thing. People may laugh at you, but the reuse strategy is the best because it saves the environment. Some people may laugh, but we have to ignore that and see that we make good use of the resources. Now we come to the main topic, that is sustainable development. Development is the key to everything. The cost of living, the standard of living goes high because of development. We need better schools, we need better colleges, we need better hospitals, we need all the facilities, and for that facilities there has to be development. But the development has to be sustainable development. So the sustainable development, what is this concept? The concept of sustainable development encourages forms of growth. There has to be growth to meet the current basic human needs, but also while preserving the resources, means making very less use of the resources for the needs of future generations. So there has to be growth to meet the basic human needs, but we do not have to exhaust all the resources. We have to preserve the resources for future generations. Now we know economic development is linked to environmental conservation. So sustainable development changes in all aspects of life. But for that, we have to understand what development is. Big cars, more cars is not development, but better mode of conveyance is the development. For this, it depends upon the willingness of the people to change their perceptions of the socio-economic and environmental conditions around them. So now many people in the offices have started to use carpools. What is a carpool? Every individual does not take his car to work. Every week, one person will take his car and carry all his friends or all his colleagues with him to the office. This is called a carpool. So carpool will save money also and save fuel also. So the perception of people have to be changed. Yes, we may have many cars, but we will not use a car for ourselves. We will try to, when there is one person or two people, you can use a bike, and when there are more people, you can use a car. So such perceptions of the socio-economic and environmental conditions have to be understood. And every individual should be ready to alter their present use of natural resources. So just because we have the resources and we can afford the resources, we should not start using all these resources just because we can afford it. Instead, we should try to preserve. It is not about a matter of richness or money, it is a matter about preserving our environment. So, here comes the main question. Why do we need to manage resources? So, all the things that we consume, that is food, clothes, books, toys, furniture, tools, vehicles, are all made from the resources on the earth. They do not fall from heaven, they are made on the earth. The only thing we get from outside is the energy we receive from the sun. And this energy is processed by the living organisms by various chemical and physical processes before we can make use of it. Means the plants have to prepare their food before the animals and humans can start using it. So, one thing we know, these resources are not unlimited. We are using these resources, but they are not unlimited, they are limited. And they are renewable, but renewing takes a lot of time. So with the human population, which is increasing, I told you at a tremendous rate due to improvement in healthcare. Now we've got better hospitals, so the mortality rate is low. But because the population is increasing, the demand for all resources is increasing at an exponential rate. We are using it more and more and more faster. So for the long-term perspective, the future generations will not have these resources. So we have to have equitable distribution of resources so that not only a handful of rich and powerful people benefit from these resources. So resources should be available to each and everyone. And the main thing is we cause the damage to the environment while these resources are extracted or used. So the mining, coal mining which is done, yes, it breaks down mountains, causes landslide like I told you. So we need development, but we have to learn to manage resources. Mining causes pollution because of the large amount of slag which is discarded for every ton of metal extracted. So in metallurgy we dig out the metal from the earth which is in the impure form. But for the metal, a large amount of waste is also taken out. And that causes a imbalance in the environment. Next is forest and wildlife. Forests are biodiversity hotspot. What does a biodiversity hotspot mean? In a forest, there are many different types of plants, animals, microorganisms. There is a very rich biodiversity. So one measure of the biodiversity is, like I told you, the number of species found there. So even if you go to our Victoria Park, you will find a lot of snakes, porcupines, hyenas, foxes, deers, nilgai, etc. Then there are ducks, different types of birds. There are these big lizards. So our Victoria Park even has got a rich biodiversity. Okay, along with that there are bacteria, fungi, ferns, flowering plants, nematodes, insects, birds, reptiles and so on. If you visit a Victoria Park for a day and observe carefully, you will see that it is biodiversity rich. So we have to try and preserve the biodiversity we have inherited. Okay, so what did happen, I hope you remember. We have got this Victoria Park wall where people go to paint regularly. That is one way of preserving our Victoria Park. Yes, it is a very rich in biodiversity. And on the other side of the Victoria Park now things like the ISKCON Club and all has caused certain damage, but people are very aware. In Bhavnagar especially, we are keeping a watch on everything and the walls are painted to bring awareness among the citizens. Now we see the stakeholders of forest resources. There are forest resources which actually the government has the control of and they will use it for the development. But government is not the only one who is the stakeholder of the forest resources or who the forest resources belong to. First of all, in the forest there are people who live in or around forests. So the Adivasis in the Dangs, yes, the Andaman Nicobar Islands, the Aborigines, they all are people who are living in or around forest and they are dependent on forest for the various aspects of life. So their culture is such that they depend upon their forest for their livelihood. Then second stakeholder is the forest department of the government which owns the land and controls the resources from the forest. Means the wood, the gum, the resins, all is controlled by the forest department. The third are the industrialists. For example, they get the tendu leaves to make BDs to the ones in paper mills. So cigarettes are made of paper, but BDs are made up of leaves which the industrialists get from the forest. So they get forest produce, okay, but they are not dependent on the forest in any one area. These people who live in the forest live in one area, while the industrialists get the material from different forests. And the fourth people are the wildlife and nature enthusiasts, the wildlife photographers and the people who like to study birds and animals. They want to conserve nature in its pure or pristine form. So these are the four people who are attached to the forest. The people who live in the forest department who control the resources from the forest, the industrialists who are interested in the raw materials they get from the forest, and fourth are a very few, the wildlife and nature enthusiasts who love the wildlife and try to preserve it. Okay, so these are the main four stakeholders of the forest, and everyone has got a role to play. So firstly look at the natives of the forest. The local people who live in the forest need firewood to cook food, they need timber and thatch to make their huts. Bamboo is also used to make huts, baskets, collecting and storing food materials. Then implements for agriculture, fishing, hunting, all this they make from wood itself. Forests are also sites for fishing and hunting. And people living here gather fruits, nuts, medicines from the forest, and even their cattle graze in the forest or feed on the fodder which is collected from forest. So you can see these people, the natives of the forest, are totally dependent upon the forest for their survival. Now comes the forest department. The forest department in independent India took over from the British, but local knowledge and local needs are ignored. Forest department people take care of the forest, but they are not aware of the people living in their forest, the diversity, so people need to study this. Now look what has happened. Vast tracts of forest has been converted to monocultures of pine, teak and eucalyptus. Pine and teak is used in furniture, eucalyptus for medicine. So what has the forest department done? They have cut the other plants and grown only pine, teak and eucalyptus. But this is not a good idea. Why? Because every forest has got its own biodiversity. So all the different types of plants should grow there. Now, huge areas are first cleared of all vegetation, it is cleared and it destroys the biodiversity in that area. So when you cut down the certain number of trees, then for the local people, the fodder, the medicine, the fruits, the nuts are no longer available. What happens after cutting them down? They are used to give materials to industries for specific products, and that is the revenue for the forest department. So what has the forest department done? It has cut down the natural trees of the forest and grown their own type of trees to provide raw materials to industries. Okay, even when the British got the control of the forest in India, they controlled it for their own benefits. So people living there were facing a lot of problems. The British used the wood for timber, paper, lag and sports equipment also. So industrial, what is the industry's need for the forest? The forest provide raw material to industries for the factories. So there are huge interest groups, they lobby the government, they tell the government to sell the raw materials at artificially low rates. So if the government wants to make money, it sells the materials to the industrialists at very low rates. Now, these industries do not reach the local people. They are not interested in the sustainability of the forest. What happens? An industry goes to a forest, takes all the resources it wants, and then it moves to another forest. It doesn't think of the people living in that area, about the animals living in that area. The only thing they know is making a profit and taking as much material as possible. So after cutting down all the teak trees in one area, they will use the teak and move to another forest to collect the teak. So they are not bothered that they are destroying the house of certain people and certain animals. And the fourth one is the wildlife enthusiasts. These wildlife enthusiasts are not dependent on the forest. They don't live in the forest, but they play a considerable role. How? They want to preserve animals like lions, tigers, elephants, and rhinoceros. So these people have made a body which puts pressure on the government. They want the government to preserve the biodiversity. Now we talk about the Bishnoi community in Rajasthan, for whom the conservation of forest has been religious. Okay? Now there is the Amrita Devi Bishnoi National Award for Wildlife Conservation in the memory of Amrita Devi Bishnoi, who in 1731, along with her life 363 others, sacrificed the life for the protection of Khejri tree in the Khejri village near Jodhpur in Rajasthan. So these ladies cling to the trees and were cut down with the trees. They sacrificed their lives, the Bishnoi community. So now people who preserve the environment are given the Amrita Devi Bishnoi National Award. Now the last part we see here is the damage that the people do to the forest resources. The Himalayan National Park contains meadows which were grazed by sheep in summer. So the shepherds who live, the nomadic shepherds who live in the Himalayas took their flocks up every summer. When the national park was formed, the practice was put to an end. So the government had made it a national park to preserve that place. But see the problem it has brought. The shepherds used to take their flock to the valley in the summer for their sheep to graze it. But now since it has become a national park, the grazing of sheep is not allowed. So the government is preserving the forest, but nobody has seen what happens to the sheep. And now because the sheep do not go to the forest, the grass first grows very tall and then it prevents the other fresh growth of grass. So when the sheep used to go there, it used to eat the grass, make place for new grass to grow. But now that is not happening. Then even deforestation, cutting of forest for industrial needs, development projects, building of roads or dams. Then tourists, when they visit these places, they also cause damage to this forest. So human intervention has been a major part of the forest landscape. Okay, what has to be managed in the nature and extent of the intervention? Forest resources ought to be used in a manner that is both environmentally and developmentally sound. So you have to understand we are not against development, but the development should not be at the cost of the environment. In other words, while the environment is preserved, the benefits of the controlled exploitation to the local people, a process in which decentralized economic growth and ecological conservation go hand in hand. So this kind of economic and social development we will want ultimately determine whether the environment will be conserved or further destroyed. So it is a vast entity and we have to be very aware of the resources which are being used. So what you have to remember here, the 3 R's: reduce, recycle and reuse. We have to do this to protect an environment. The development not should be lopsided. It should be sustainable development which preserves the resources for our future generations. So this is the first part of the lesson. We have understood what are the natural resources, how we use the natural resources, how we exploit the natural resources, and how we should help to preserve these natural resources. So I am going to end the lecture here. Thank you.